Imagine a day when Margaret Thatcher, the Iron Lady, returns to run the British government for just one day. What would that day look like? Let's delve into this hypothetical scenario. Picture it. One day, the formidable figure of Margaret Thatcher is back at the helm of British politics. Known for her conservative and market-oriented policies, Thatcher's political comeback, even for just one day, could shake the very foundations of the UK's current political landscape. The impact of such an event would largely hinge on the specific policies she might choose to implement. Thatcher was an advocate for privatisation, deregulation, and a downsized role of the state in the economy. Should she return, we could potentially see her pushing for further deregulation or advocating for the privatisation of certain state-owned industries or services. But the influence of Thatcher's return wouldn't solely depend on her policy choices. The current political climate in the UK would also play a significant role. Would her staunch conservatism resonate with today's electorate, or would it clash with more progressive sentiments? Moreover, the economic implications of Thatcher's hypothetical return could be profound. Her policies in the 80s led to economic growth, but also brought about significant social and economic changes. A one-day return might not be enough to enact lasting economic changes, but it could signal a shift in policy direction and influence economic sentiment. Then there's the question of political reaction. Thatcher remains a polarising figure in British politics. Her return, even if just for a day, would likely ignite a fierce reaction from both her supporters and detractors. Protests, debates and public discourse would be expected. Finally, let's not forget the symbolic impact. Even if Thatcher's return were purely symbolic or ceremonial, it would send a powerful message about the direction of British politics and could influence public perception and future policy debates. This is not just a thought experiment. It's a way to understand the lasting impact of Thatcher's policies and her legacy in British politics. Thatcher's conservative and market-oriented policies were her trademark. If she returned, what policies might she push? Margaret Thatcher, often dubbed the Iron Lady, was well known for her staunch commitment to conservative market-oriented policies. These included a strong push towards privatisation, deregulation, and the reduction of the state's role within the economy. Now, if we were to witness a hypothetical return of Thatcher, even if just for a day, it's interesting to ponder over the policies she might advocate for. She might propose further deregulation, extending it to areas that up until now have remained relatively untouched. This could involve simplifying rules and reducing the amount of red tape that businesses have to navigate, thereby encouraging more private sector growth and innovation. Another possibility is the Iron Lady advocating for the privatisation of more state-owned industries or services. Think about the sectors still under state control, such as health or parts of the transport system. Thatcher might argue that these sectors could benefit from the efficiency, innovation and competition that come with privatisation. It's also possible that Thatcher might push for a reduction in public spending. This could involve proposing cuts to certain areas of the budget in order to reduce the deficit and national debt. However, it's important to remember that these policy changes wouldn't occur in a vacuum. They would have to be approved by Parliament, and there would likely be considerable debate and opposition. The climate of the country has changed since Thatcher's time, and many of her policies are now viewed through a different lens. The return of Margaret Thatcher, even for a fleeting day, could spark a renewed conversation about the role of the state in the economy, the balance between regulation and freedom, and the merits and drawbacks of privatisation. These policies could signal a shift in the UK's political direction, even if only for a day. Thatcher remains a polarising figure in British politics. Her return, even for a day, would likely spark a strong reaction. Indeed, the Iron Lady's hypothetical re-emergence on the political stage would undoubtedly cause a political stir across the spectrum. Thatcher's supporters, those who champion her market-oriented policies and stance on personal responsibility, would likely rally behind her. They would see her return as a chance to reinvigorate the conservative ethos, to bring back the spirit of individualism, and to remind the nation of the potential power of a deregulated market. They might hold rallies, launch social media campaigns, or even organise public debates championing the merits of Thatcherism. On the other side of the fence, her critics, those who felt the sting of her policies, might view her return with a mix of apprehension and disapproval. Trade unions, for instance, might organise protests, arguing that Thatcher's policies eroded workers' rights and led to increasing income inequality. Social activists could use this opportunity to highlight the social cost of her economic policies, bringing to the fore discussions on poverty, unemployment and social division. The media would likely play a significant role in shaping public discourse around Thatcher's hypothetical return. News outlets, opinion pieces, and social media influencers would all contribute to the debate, each adding their unique perspective to the conversation. The resulting discourse would likely be a mix of nostalgia, criticism, admiration, and controversy. But beyond the immediate reactions, the potential long-term impact is perhaps even more intriguing. Thatcher's hypothetical return could serve as a catalyst for renewed discussions on the direction of British politics. It could inspire a new generation of politicians to either follow in her footsteps or vehemently oppose her ideals. It could encourage citizens to re-evaluate their political beliefs and their expectations of their leaders. The public reaction to Thatcher's hypothetical return could influence future policy debates and the political landscape. Indeed, the reactions could ripple far beyond the confines of that single day, shaping the course of British politics for years to come. Thatcher's strong stance on foreign policy issues is well known. How might her return affect the UK's foreign policy? Indeed, Thatcher was known for her unwavering conviction and determination, particularly during the Falklands War. Her decisive actions and assertive diplomacy were defining features of her time in office. If we entertain the hypothetical scenario of Thatcher returning to run the British government for a single day, it's reasonable to assume that her influence could extend to the UK's foreign policy, at least for that day. Her strong belief in British sovereignty and her willingness to defend it, even in the face of international criticism, could potentially lead to a more assertive stance in international relations. For instance, she might advocate for a tougher stance on trade negotiations or push for stronger alliances with nations that share her conservative, market-oriented values. However, such changes would be temporary and only last the duration of her one-day reign. But beyond policy changes, there's another crucial aspect to consider: the symbolic impact of Thatcher's return. Because symbols are powerful. They shape our understanding of the world, they guide our actions, and they can even influence our future. Margaret Thatcher remains a potent symbol of conservative ideology and market-oriented policies. Her return, even if only for a day, could signal a renewed commitment to these ideals. This could influence public perception and future policy debates, potentially leading to a shift in political discourse and a resurgence of Thatcherite values. Furthermore, Thatcher's return could serve as a symbol of resilience and determination, qualities she embodied throughout her political career. These qualities might inspire current and future leaders, encouraging them to stand firm in their convictions and persevere in the face of adversity. So even if her return were largely symbolic, it could send a strong message about the direction of British politics. It could signal a shift towards more conservative, market-oriented policies and a more assertive stance in international relations. And it could inspire current and future leaders to embody Thatcher's resilience and determination, potentially influencing the course of British politics for years to come. The practicality of a former leader returning to run the government, even for a day, raises legal and constitutional questions. You see, the UK's political system has evolved since Thatcher's time in office. Today we're going to delve into some of the potential legal and constitutional issues that might arise from her hypothetical return. To start, the UK's constitution is uncodified, meaning it's not contained within a single written document. Instead, it's a blend of statutes, treaties, judicial decisions, conventions, and historical documents. This makes the constitution flexible but also a bit ambiguous. So imagine if Thatcher were to return for a day. Would it be legally possible? Well, technically, there's no law preventing a former Prime Minister from returning to office. However, they would need to be elected by the majority of the House of Commons, which is no small feat. Next, we must consider the constitutional implications. The British constitutional principle of ministerial responsibility states that ministers are accountable to Parliament for their actions and the actions of their departments. Would Thatcher be held accountable for her decisions made during her one-day term? Would the current Prime Minister be held accountable instead? These questions hint at the potential constitutional complexities. Also, we cannot forget about the royal prerogative, the powers traditionally held by the monarch that have over time been devolved to government ministers. These powers include the ability to dissolve Parliament, declare war, or sign treaties. If Thatcher were to return, could she exercise these powers? The answer, like many things in constitutional law, is unclear. Finally, there may be legal hurdles to Thatcher taking any official action. For instance, would laws passed during her one-day term be legally binding? Again, this is uncharted territory. While this scenario is highly unlikely, it raises interesting questions about the nature of political power and the legacy of influential leaders. It compels us to question how flexible our political systems are and how we should navigate the complexities of political continuity and change.